Have you ever looked at a plant and just, well, it felt like it was trying to tell you something?
Uh-huh.
Like its very appearance held a secret. For our ancestors, the natural world wasn't just stuff to use.
Right, it was more like a book.
Exactly. A vast, intricate book full of divine clues,
Yeah.
especially for health and healing.
They really believed nothing was random. Not a color, not a texture.
Every detail had a purpose, a signature.
And it's fascinating how deep that idea went. It wasn't just some like quaint belief. It was their whole system for understanding the world.
Their paradigm, they weren't just looking at nature.
No, they were actively reading it, interpreting its language.
I find that just incredible. So in this deep dive, we're going to explore exactly that, the historical idea called the doctrine of signatures. And today we're focusing on how the colors, the hues, and the surfaces of plants were thought to reveal their healing powers, like right out in the open.
And our insights for this discussion come from quite a rich collection of sources. There's a particularly good chapter on chromatic and textural signatures, the palette and texture of healing.
So our mission today is really to unpack this ancient way of thinking. We want to help you, our listener, understand these sympathetic connections they drew between how a plant looked and what it could do medicinally.
Think of it as a way to get up to speed on this really intriguing historical medical view.
Ready to dive in?
Let's do it. To really get how color became a guide, we absolutely have to start with humoral theory.
Right, the big one.
Yeah, for over 2,000 years, this was the dominant medical idea inherited from the Greeks, especially Galen. Health was all about balancing four main bodily fluids, or humors.
It's so different from how we think now without, scans and blood tests. These humors, they weren't just abstract ideas, were they? How did people sort of see them?
Exactly. They were tied to everything. Body parts, functions, even personality. First, you had blood. This was seen as hot and moist.
Hot and moist, okay.
Linked to the heart, the liver, and a generally cheerful, optimistic person, sanguine, they called it.
Sanguine, got it. And next?
Then yellow bile, hot and dry, associated with the liver, the gallbladder.
Ah, and maybe a fiery temper?
Precisely. An irritable or choleric disposition.
Okay, 2 down.
Next up, black bile. This one was cold and dry.
Cold and dry.
Linked to the spleen. Too much of this, they thought, caused deep sadness, melancholy, that brooding type.
Melancholies, that's where the term comes from.
Pretty much. And finally, phlegm. Cold and moist.
Cold and moist.
Connected to the brain, the lungs. This led to a calm, maybe even a bit sluggish or phlegmatic temperament.
Fascinating. So if any of these were out of whack.
That's when you got sick. Disease was just an imbalance of these humors.
Too much heat, too much cold.
Exactly. And this is where the plants come in. The color of a plant was believed to be a direct sign, a signature of which humor it could affect, how it could help restore that balance.
Wow. It's really something how they built this whole system on what they could see and touch. It says a lot about, the human need to find patterns.
It really does.
So let's start with red, the signature of sanguine vigor. I mean, red.
Yeah.
You think life, you think blood, right?
Absolutely. That connection was immediate. Red meant blood, heart circulation. So any plant with bright red colors, or maybe sap that looked like it was bleeding red,
Powerful stuff.
very powerful. Seen as remedies for blood problems, wounds, anything sanguine. The visual link was just so strong.
And the examples are so clear, like bloodroot, Sanguinaria canadensis,
Perfect example.
the name itself.
Yeah.
And that vivid red-orange sap when you break the root. It was like the textbook signature for blood issues, skin problems, cleaning wounds. That dramatic bleeding was the sign.
Or think about beetroot, Beta vulgaris, something we eat all the time.
That deep red color.
Obvious signature for blood. People ate it to, quote, enrich the blood, help with anemia, support the heart. It just made sense visually in their system.
Yeah, totally intuitive. And red clover, Trifolium praetens, those reddish-purple flowers.
Same idea. Suggested an affinity for blood, so is used as a blood purifier, or for skin issues, which they often thought were like blood imbalances showing up on the outside.
It's amazing how consistent the logic was.
So red was vitality, life force, the essence of that sanguine humor. A plant mirroring that color was thought to hold its sympathetic power, like an energy match.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, so if red handled the sanguine humor, what about yellow and orange? The signature of choleric balance.
Right, these warm colors, they were clearly linked to yellow bile, the liver, and things like jaundice.
Where the skin turns yellow.
Exactly. So plants of this color were given to cleanse the liver, get the bile flowing, and deal with those hot or dry imbalances.
And a great example, one we know well today, is turmeric, curcuma longa.
Oh, absolutely. That intense golden yellow root just screamed liver and gallbladder health to them. It fit perfectly with treating choleric conditions, especially since turmeric also has a warming quality.
So basically, if you were feeling a bit hot-headed, they might suggest some turmeric.
Agrees, pretty much. And then saffron. Crocus sativus, those rich orange threads making that bright yellow dye, used for liver issues but also as a mood lifter, maybe because of the bright color.
Interesting connection. And even celandine, Chelidonium majus. You mentioned sap before.
Yes, this one has bright yellow-orange sap when you break the stem. A really potent signature for liver and gallbladder problems, especially jaundice. They thought it helped expel foul humors from the liver.
The plant was literally showing the color of the problem it could fix.
That's how they saw it. Yellow was the color of that fiery bile. The plant's appearance was its instruction manual.
This systematic color coding of nature is just captivating. So next up is white or pale, the signature of phlegmatic soothe.
These colors got linked to phlegm, naturally, but also things like bones, milk, and generally cool, moist conditions.
So plants with white sap, pale flowers, milky stuff.
Or even things that looked kind of bone-like. They were thought to affect those systems.
Okay, like what?
Milk thistle, Silybum marianum, is a classic. Break the leaves, you get this milky white sap.
The milky signature.
Exactly. Plus, the leaves have these white veins. Some thought they looked like the inside of the liver, like marbling.
Wow.
So, used for liver and gallbladder issues to purify the blood, get things flowing, maybe counteracting a sluggish phlegmatic liver.
And comfrey, Symphytum officinale, you mentioned it might have textural signs, too.
It does, but its roots are often pale, kind of whitish. That was seen as a signature for bones, for skeletal health, especially when used as a poultice to, well, knit bones.
The name knit bone comes right from that signature.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even something simple like the daisy Bellis perennis,
Right.
white petals, led to ideas of purity, healing, maybe linked to cool or phlegmatic conditions.
Soothing, cooling, strengthening.
That was the idea behind white and pale. Remedies for phlegm, support for the body's structure.
Okay, last color group, dark or black, the signature of melancholic depth.
Yes, these deeper, darker hues linked to black bile, the spleen, and those states of melancholy or deep sadness.
So plants that look dark, somber.
Or even things that caused darkening. They were used for these cold and dry imbalances associated with melancholy.
Any examples stand out?
Black hellebore, Helleborus niger, is a prime one. It has dark roots, a kind of gloomy look.
And he was known to be a strong purgative.
Yeah, very strong. So that combination made it a classic signature for melancholy, for mental issues thought to come from too much black bile. Used to cleanse that humor, though often quite dangerously.
Right, important disclaimer there. What about mandrake, Mandragora officinarum? I know it's famous for looking like a person.
It is. That's the anthropomorphic signature. But its root is often dark, fleshy, and it has strong associations with night, the deep earth. That gave it a dark signature, too.
For those really deep, melancholic states.
Exactly. It seems they didn't shy away from linking dark colors with serious, profound conditions. Gravity, depth, influencing that melancholic humor, trying to cleanse or rebalance those deep internal states.
It's just incredible looking at the world through that lens. Every plant is like a coded message.
It really is.
But it wasn't just about what you saw, was it? It was also very much about what you felt.
Exactly. Beyond color, the actual feel, the surface of the plant, that gave huge clues. Texture was another divine signature, suggesting how a plant might interact sympathetically with the body's own tissues or structures.
Okay, let's talk about rough or bony textures for strength and structure. We mentioned comfrey root, Symphytum officinale, again.
Yes, that rough, almost gritty feel combined with the pale color, it just screamed bone to them.
Hence knit bone. Used in poultices to mend fractures, heal bruises. The signature was something you could see and feel.
Definitely. Then there's horsetail, Equisetum arvens, a really ancient plant.
What's its texture like?
It's very distinct, segmented, rough, almost abrasive, like bone or maybe even hair.
So they used it for?
Strengthening bones, teeth, hair, nails, anything needing structure, rigidity.
Makes sense by their logic.
And here's the amazing part. Centuries later, we find out horsetail is incredibly rich in silica.
Silica. which we know is important for bone and connective tissue health.
Exactly. It's one of those uncanny moments where ancient observation kind of stumbled onto something chemically relevant.
That is fantastic. What a great example. Okay, so from rough to maybe porous or spotted textures for damage and flow.
Right. Think about lungwort pulmonary officinalis. Its leaves, besides sometimes being shaped a bit like lungs, often have these pale, translucent spots.
Spots.
Yeah, and if you hold a leaf up to the light, they almost look like little holes, like perforations or maybe like diseased lung tissue.
Ah, so that was a direct signature for lung problems,
Yeah.
consumption, things like that.
That was the interpretation. And then St. John's wort, Hypericum perforatum.
Perforatum, meaning perforated.
Precisely. The leaves are covered in tiny translucent dots that look like pinpricks or pores.
Okay, so what did that signify?
They saw it as a signature for piercing wounds, damage to skin, maybe even nerves, so it was widely used for cuts, punctures.
And later, didn't it get linked to nerve issues?
It did, which is remarkable considering its modern use, especially concerning neurological well-being. Another intriguing connection across time.
Really fascinating. Okay, one more texture type. Sticky or gummy? For binding and drawing.
Any plant that oozed a sticky resin, or maybe when you prepared it, it became thick and gummy.
Like marshmallow root, Althea officinalis. That's known for being mucilaginous.
Exactly like marshmallow root or certain tree barks. That stickiness was seen as a signature for binding things together or drawing things out or healing wounds.
How so? Binding and drawing.
Well, they figured that sticky quality could literally help bind tissues back together like a natural glue, or it could draw out impurities, splinters, pus.
Okay.
And it could also soothe inflamed surfaces, basically acting like a natural bandage or a balm. The stickiness itself was the sign, the tactile promise that it could adhere, protect, and heal.
This whole system, this intricate tapestry of color and texture signatures, it really shows how committed our ancestors were to reading, as you said, every minute detail of nature's book.
It truly does. They believed the world wasn't just speaking in big gestures, but in these subtle nuances of color and touch.
Each one a deliberate clue, almost like a compassionate hint from the divine about how to heal.
It's a real testament to human observation, finding patterns and meaning even without, the tools we have today.
It really makes you think, as Zoran, the ancient wormer, put it so well. A plant's true power is often woven into its very being, from the deepest root to the faintest blush of its petal. To see only the obvious is to miss the greater song.
That's a great quote. It pushes us to appreciate their observational skill, doesn't it? It was a kind of folk science that sometimes, maybe just by chance, pointed towards real effects, like with the horsetail.
Yeah, and that connection between appearance and function, it still lingers in our language sometimes, like calling certain oranges blood oranges.
That's a fantastic point. The echoes are still there.
So here's a thought for you, our listener, as you go about your day. Try becoming a discerning reader of nature's hidden textures yourself. Pick a specific, maybe non-obvious texture you encounter. Could be, I don't know, the velvet feel of a peach skin, the prickliness of a thistle, smoothness of a river stone, even the dryness of a baked leaf, or the sliminess of pond algae.
Okay.
Now, just based on that texture, imagine its signature for healing. What kind of human feeling or ailment do you think it would sympathetically soothe or address or counteract?
Thinking purely from the texture itself.
Exactly. Think about its qualities. Is it soothing or irritating, drying or moistening? Does it feel like it would harden or soften something, bind or loosen, cleanse or protect? How might that texture's inherent quality be a signature for an imagined healing effect?